everyone, Greg Cazillo from Cazillo.com. One of my photography coaching clients, Elizabeth, was so kind as to give me these photos to allow me to critique them in a video. And so we've actually been working for a number of weeks getting her to this point, and she's made a lot of progress from the very beginning. If I could show you the other ones, I would, but it's really a drastic difference in the things that we have talked about and improvement that she's made in only just a few weeks of coaching and working through and really working on the things that she really needed to improve on and wanted to improve on. So let's go through these kind of one by one in the things that she can still improve on, still work on, and also maybe you get some ideas, maybe your photos are the same or something like that. So let's get into it. First thing that I talked about with regards to this photo, and by the way, all these photos, we've already done this critique. We've already talked about this in one of the coaching sessions. We do them over Skype so that she can see the screen, see what I'm pointing at, see what I'm talking about. I do an assignment, tell them, look, you need to work on this, you need to work on this. And you know, we figure out where they need to go from there, basically. So back to the photos. This particular one is again, they're Elizabeth's photos. I don't know her daughter's name, so I do apologize. Daughter is obviously the one in the photos. One thing we talked about and had worked on is having her think a little bit more about the photos that she wants to create, starting to pre-visualize, think about it a little bit, and then choose what photo or what lens, the right lens, let me back up a little bit, choose the right lens to use for the particular image she's trying to create. In this case, she's shooting a portrait, so she'll want to back up and then zoom in a little bit. One critique of this photo is it should be a little bit tighter. There really, in my opinion, isn't anything else in this photo that makes a difference, that really composition-wise, you know, but you just need to make it tighter. So I told her, look, step up a little bit more, zoom in a little bit tighter. She's already at 170 millimeter and shooting at f2.8, which is really good, getting her that nice blurry background. But if she had zoomed in all the way in her 70-200 lens and then gotten even a little bit closer, would have made that background even that much blurrier, which would have made it better, and of course cropped it tighter. So that's our first one. Second one, basically the same shot or the same scene, I believe, but cropped tighter. I like seeing that nice, tighter image when you're shooting a couple of, you know, usually that's one pose, and then move in for that second shot, that third, the fifth, the 10th shot in that same spot. I've seen a lot of photographers do that where you just they'll shoot one photo in one scene and that's it. Well, you can almost always work on and almost always get multiple photos in a single scene or a single pose. Sometimes they're going to like one versus another better. You really never know. So this is a good example of it. My only critique bad in this photo is there's a little bit too much headroom. All right, we need to cut down on the amount of headroom up here. Crop it down to about here just to have a little bit. Other than that, it's really good. The exposure is good. The pose is very nice, very relaxed, perfect. Trying to think what else. Oh yes, the cropping itself of the legs. In my hands and feet video and body video, I talked about what the right places to crop a photo and compose a photo. You never want to compose it though it's through the joints, through the knees, through the ankles, through the feet, through the hands, through the elbows, anything like that. So she's composed it right. She just needs to be just a touch tighter just to get rid of that little bit of extra headroom that's there that we really don't need. All right, next one. And actually, I think I edited this a little bit, so let me go back in my exposure and fix it. There we go. Okay, so first critique, same thing, headroom. Too much headroom, or not enough headroom in this case. You don't want that hair just touching. You either want a little bit of space there, or a normal amount of space there, or you want no space and you want to cut off the head and then go down and kind of cut the head in between, kind of in the middle, or maybe just forehead, depending upon what you're trying to create. So make sure there's the right amount there. The next issue is exposure. All right, the right side of the face, as we're looking at it here, should be properly exposed. And then the left side of the face, the side that's in shadow, should be underexposed. Okay? You never want that overexposure on that side of the face. So that's why I had adjusted it down a little bit. Now obviously it's still blowing out. It still isn't looking perfect. But just to give you the idea, this would be closer to what we would actually want, with the main light side in a proper exposure, and then the fill light side, or the opposite side of the face, the side that's in shadow, that's the side of the face that we would have underexposed. Now, in order to get a little bit better balance here, I had told her to add a little bit of fill flash, maybe a stop and a half, 2 stops under the normal exposure. And of course, she would also need to increase her shutter speed in order to underexpose this side of the face a little bit, because her exposure is a little too bright. So right now she is at 1/320th of a second, f2.8, and ISO 100. So in order to fix this, probably need to go up to a 500th, or maybe a little bit higher in the shutter speed, maybe a third over a 500, which all of a sudden I forget what that number is. Doesn't matter. 640, 620, something like that. Anyway. So go up by about a stop in the exposure, then add the flash. Since that shutter speed's real high, you will need to use, she's shooting a Canon here, so she will need to use the high-speed sync mode. In the Nikons, that is called Auto FP. But anyway, she would need to use that in this mode in order to get that the flash to sync properly with the camera, with the shutter. But that's at the expense of the amount of power coming out of the flash. So she'll need to use the zoom that's built into the flash head, or maybe move the flash a little bit closer to the subject in order to get the right amount of flash. You could use a TTL mode here. That wouldn't really be an issue, since most likely your fill flash is going to be on camera or next to the camera. So that would probably be fine. So those are probably the adjustments I would make here. The other cool thing about that is it would add a nice little catch light into the eyes, giving it even that much more interest. I do like the overall cropping of the image, and I think other than the headroom issue, I think it's fine. Same problem here with the exposure. We would definitely need to adjust that down, and a bunch of these photos have that same issue, so I'm going to stop mentioning it. Alright, so maybe a little bit more here. Alright, again, we want that main light side of the face to have proper exposure, and then the shadow side is going to be underexposed. So, in this particular image, actually, this is cropped, I believe. I didn't reset it, which I probably should have. And yeah, okay, let's reset. There we go. Alright, back to this photo. Now, this is the original photo that she had sent me. Alright? What happens a lot, and I noticed that I used to do this, and I've really been trying to change that. Oops, dismiss, there we go. To really change this habit, which is when I'm using the multiple focus points inside of the camera, I'll have the one focus point, and instead of moving the focus point to fit the framing, I'm doing the opposite. And I used to do this, again, it was a problem, and I fixed it since then, but I still notice it in a lot of other people's photos. So in other words, you have that one focus point set, and you take the focus point and you put it on the person's face, and then you shoot, not thinking about the cropping, not thinking about the composition of the entire photo as much, more worried about the focus. So once again, work on that, do the opposite. Set up your framing first, then move your focus point to where it belongs and focus the image. So if we do that, we're going to go back and look at that crop again. All we would need to do is come up in here a little bit, okay, and just a hair tighter, and that is a much better crop, much more interesting, bringing her face over to this right side. And the other thing that happens is it brings her face closer to the third line, or the third intersecting line for this horizontal and the vertical, which is going to be more interesting. So much better composition overall. The other thing that I said, in general, I'm going to go back to this one. In general, having that extra negative space can be good, so sometimes you definitely want to try it. Although I would prefer to see it on this side in this particular image. You kind of want that negative space to the person to be kind of facing that negative space most of the time. Obviously, that's a general rule. It really depends on what you're trying to create, the mood that you're trying to capture in the particular photo. But for this one, happy, fun, you really want that negative space to be in front of the person. So we would shoot it horizontally. Do I have another crop of that? Yeah, here you go. And so it's much nicer with that negative space over here in front rather than over here, whoops, in behind. And hopefully you see the difference there. And you know what I'm going to do? Let me duplicate this photo real quick and show you the two of them side by side, because it really is a dramatic difference in between the two. And all we're really doing is just a slight recomposition. All right, and so let me compare these. It's the one on the right here is much nicer. She's facing that negative space. Your eyes aren't kind of getting lost off of the frame and out of the frame. So it's a much better way to go. And so just think about that when you're composing and setting up your images. These can be really great if you're putting inside of an album or you're doing something else with it, maybe making a collage of photos, maybe using it for whatever, maybe a card or something, and you're going to write text on top of it. Great for add-ons as far as when you're in business or fun stuff, if you're going to do something else with the photos later on. Next photo. This one, obviously, we have the exposure issue again. But the one thing that I really talked about with this photo is the fact that she could have gotten a lot more images in this one spot. Okay? And that's really through the posing. All right? The pose that she has here is okay. It's not great, but she could have kept on going. She didn't. I asked her, hey, do you have any more of these? And she didn't. She just had the one, and that was it. So the first thing I would have done, if, say, her daughter had sat down like this, start out like that. Maybe she's comfortable like that, but then try and work her into a different position. I would have moved her butt back into the corner a little bit, put her elbow over here on the edge of the armrest, turn the body a little bit more into the camera. That was with her legs still up. Then maybe put the legs down, put the knees down on the bottom of the bench here. That would have helped. Once again, our negative space is on the wrong side of the image, so I'm going to go ahead and crop that. And just this little crop makes a big difference. All right, there you go. A little bit of crop there. I don't like the hand position here. Again, it looks like this weird little growth thing that's coming out. You don't know if it's attached to an arm or not. So I would have had her maybe put the arm up on her knee, maybe put her elbow up on the knee, let her hand rest. When I'm posing women, I don't like to have real rough positions of the hand and the elbow. I want to do my best to give a nice, comfortable curve to the hand. Always doing my best not to show the back of the hand. Try to do more of the side of the hand or something like this with a nice finger position. You never want it real stiff like this. And try and keep the spacing in between the fingers even. All of those things make a difference. With men, and I've talked about this before, when you're standing in a group, never have allow men to have a fist. Men do it all the time. I'm guilty of it too. Try and have them just relax their fingers, shake them out, and just relax. And it relaxes them in general rather than being stiff and stodgy and stuff. So it's a much better photo there. So there's a bunch of stuff here that she could have done in this one pose, in this one location. And actually, one of the assignments that she has for this week coming up is to work on that and go back to the same spot, shoot a bunch of photos, and try and get some different poses here. We've actually talked about posing in the past, that she's had some trouble with posing, and so I'm doing my best to help her out and to keep working on it. And one of my tips that I've actually given for that, and I'm just giving all kinds of stuff away here, but is to keep looking at other people's photos. Keep studying other photos, study poses. And that's the best thing that you can do, is keep looking at other photos, study, always looking at other people's work. If you like their poses, if you like their lighting, study the photo. Figure out where the light's coming from, how they're posed. Look at the camera and the lens selection. Not as much the exposure, because that's going to vary a little bit, but definitely the aperture to see what the depth of field would be like in the image that you're creating. And then maybe take a look and see if there's any flash in it. That's one great thing about Flickr, is it's showing you all that metadata that you can actually take a look at and explore. Next photo here. First thing that I see, first place that my eyes go is to her feet, because they are being cut off not only by the flowers there in the foreground, but also by the image. All right, that's the first problem. Second problem, too much headroom. Third problem, the tree is really competing with her in this image. It's in the foreground in front of her. Not good, not a good position for it. Other than that, it's nice. I don't mind the hand positions too much, at least not of this hand. Of this one, I would have liked to have seen just bring the fingers together, bring them around to the front of her leg rather than a couple fingers around the back. What I'll do a lot of times, again, just shoot that first one. They're in that first pose. Let them get relaxed a little bit. One, maybe two, and then say, okay, try this, and you shoot that second one, and I'll try this, and you do a third one. You're kind of working them into that final really good image that you want them to be in, that you know is going to look better. Next one, did I crop this one? No. Okay, I like the dark background. Once again, issue with the exposure. It's too bright on the ones on the main light side of the face, and other than that, though, it's good. And and the negative space is on the correct side, so that's good. And then this one doesn't bother me at all. Let's work on the headroom. That's obviously a problem. Don't like the hand position here. Needs to be better. All right, needs some improvement there with that hand position. Cropping, fix the headroom. Cropping at the bottom, fix the leg here. And once again, just get tighter. There is nothing going on here. Oh, you know what else I wanted to talk about on this? What was her zoom position? 90 millimeter. If she would have backed up by another 10 feet and then zoomed in, the background wouldn't have been anywhere near as sharp, and it would have been a lot more blown out and get a much nicer composition because you have more bokeh, and the stuff around her wouldn't have been as prevalent. Same thing with those flowers or bushes there in the bottom left-hand corner of the image. If she would have just had her step over like a foot or 2 feet to her right, hopefully there would have been room, as long as there was room. They're just a little bit distracting. They're a little bit too sharp in the image, and they're competing a little bit in that bottom corner. So if we crop it here, you'll see what I'm talking about. And okay, much nicer. All it took was just a little bit of zoom, a little bit of crop, but again, you want to be doing this in camera, not figuring out in post. When you're first beginning, when you're first working, it's going to take you some time to really figure that out and to see these tiny little things that need to be fixed. But the more you work at it, the more you study, the more you see other people's photos, and of course you can come to me for critiques. You can post your photos on the forum, Cazillo.com/forum, or I do offer the photography coaching like I was talking about earlier. Either way, I can help you out, and of course watching videos, that's always great too. So I don't think there's anything else that I wanted to mention about these. Realistically, the big things that we talked about were lens choice and zoom position choice. All right, watching your composition, watching your exposure, make sure you're exposing the correct side of the face or the main light side of the face properly. Posing, hand positions, composition with regards to body, making sure you're not cutting stuff off. And so they're really the big things that are in here. Oh, and the proper selection of negative space. So questions, comments, I'd love to hear them. Greg Cazillo, Cazillo.com. Thanks, guys. Keep shooting. See you.